Welcome back to the Solution Prescribers podcast. We're glad you've joined. It's an exciting week. This week we had the opportunity of speaking with one of our uh, clients, and as we are onboarding this client, this private practice, one thing came about as we're talking about goals and data and what they're doing. And as we did that, it was interesting to find out or to hear how and this is very common actually. This is very common as we onboard clients or as we meet with practices is they have an idea of what's going on within the practice. They have an idea of how much they're bringing, but sometimes we don't know necessarily what's to happen, what's coming, how to get to our goal, and even do we even have goals? And so that is something interesting we'd like to discuss today in this specific episode is goals and how to measure that or how to go about them. Usually when we're shadowing practices, one thing that we find very interesting as we talk to them is like, do you know how you're being successful? Do you know what's making you successful? Do you know if you're being successful in your role? And they think they're being successful, but they don't know how they're being measured. And they go, well, I show up to work and it's still clocking in. I mean, I'm still clocking in and it's working. The time card is working. I think I'm employed. And then it's like, well, that's a challenge. That can be frustrating, not knowing if you're scoring the goal or what the goal is. And are we even close to it? Is it more on the mood of us as owners or management, or is it very clear expectations on what they need to accomplish? And so as we do this, one thing to keep in mind, and I'm sure that you might have heard the term SMART goals, which is an acronym on when you're setting up goals with your teams, and what that mean is SMART is it specific, is it measurable, is it attainable, is it relevant, and is it time bound? Like, does it have all those elements when you're talking to your practice or to your members, to your team members? So I want to let's spend some time and talk about what SMART goals are and how does that relate or connect with your specific team and your practice. So let's start with S, which is specific. And so I like using the front desk as an example. So something specific for the front desk. And sometimes we think about this. What is the purpose or the goal of the front desk? What are they trying to accomplish? And oftentimes we hear, well, their goal is to be able to be the face of the practice, the face of the company. Their goal is to provide great customer service, and their goal is to make sure that the forms are signed, and that's what we do. And I go, great, those are all tasks, but their main goal, as they're answering phone calls, is converting leads into consults. Their main goal is to be able to rebook a service to another service and make sure that that's back on the calendar. In other words, their goal is to make sure that their calendar, the clinic's calendar, the provider's calendar, the office calendar is filled. That's their goal. And so that's a specific goal that you can go ahead and have for them. It's like your purpose or as you breathe and live is like, okay, let me make sure that the calendar is filled, and that if there's gaps, I'm talking to the team, I'm talking to management, I'm talking to the providers on how do we fill those gaps? How do we keep the practice going? So that's specific. That's very clear. Another example on when it comes to specific, let me use the injectors as an example. If you're an injector, cosmetic injector, what's your goal? And an injector might say, well, my goal is to inject or provide that service to my patient, and I think that's fantastic. That's true. But let's add to that. Your goal is to educate your patient to a way that usually they come in and they have an idea of what they need, but they're not educated enough to know how much they need. In fact, oftentimes when a patient is frustrated when it comes to the injectable world, when they're frustrated is because they did not see the outcome they were after because they were undertreated. And oftentimes it's not the provider's fault in the way that they were undertreated because the patient wanted 20 units of toxin to be spread throughout their entire face, and maybe that's going to help me. And no, it's like maybe that's only one area, and you need more units here and there. And so being able to educate the patient to get the right amount of units or fillers or whatever that is to be able to accomplish the goal that they're there for. So that's a very specific goal. And so then the second acronym or the second letter of the acronym SMART goals is going to be measurable. So what do we measure then? So I'm going to use the example of the injectable, of the injector. And what are we measuring? We're measuring maybe the conversion of toxin to filler. How many patients do you see that come in for toxin, and how many of them are we upselling or cross-selling to filler? Another way to measure that is going to be your average ticket. So if they come in maybe at requesting 20 units of a toxin, but in all reality they need 35 or 40, then are we measuring that increase of that percentage of units because of your expertise, your prescription, your roadmap to help that patient accomplish their goals? That becomes measurement. Let me go back to the front desk. What do I measure? How do I measure somebody that's trying to book appointments or schedule appointments? You can measure their conversion rate. What's the conversion rate of calls coming in versus converting them into an appointment, into a consult? And so that's something you can take a look at as you're speaking to your team, and something that's going to be very specific. Let's continue with measures. How do you measure a practice's customer service? You go, because they leave happy? Are you measuring by the amount of smiles that leave through the door? My gosh, if that was the case, there's been so many practices or so many patients that I've seen leave happy, or seem to be happy, and then they leave not a very positive, a non-positive review, a negative review, or a not so stellar review. And because they don't want to be confrontational in person, but they're okay doing it behind the computer, behind the screen. And so a way that we can measure how is our customer service is our 5-star reviews. How many reviews do we get per day or per week, and how many of them are 5-star? And that's how you start measuring. Then you can say, okay, team, we're going to start focusing on customer service. We're going to start focusing on the patient experience. And the way that we're going to do that is by seeing our reviews. How many reviews can we get in a week, on a month, and how many of those are going to be 5 stars? And now you can start measuring the reviews coming in and what level of that review that is. So that's the way of doing measurement. Then the next one is attainable, and that is, can I really reach my goals? And this is an invitation to the executive team, to the managers, to the owners. And oftentimes we go, my God, I want my goal to be 1 million. A million. I want to reach I want to break my first million, which we've seen over and over. We've helped practices break their first million over and over. And it's an exciting thing to watch and witness as they accomplish that. But to say we're going to get that now, tomorrow, next month, and when I ask, okay, how much are you making a month? And they go, well, $20,000 a month, or $30,000 a month. Or I don't have any clients. I'm just starting. Great. I love that. Now let's make it attainable, and let's make sure that we know that that's our ultimate goal, is to break our first million. Maybe we can break our first million this year, which we've also witnessed. We've witnessed that happening within 6 months or a year. We've seen that. We've witnessed that. We've helped with that. But how do I what's my first goal? What's my first attainable goal? And then what's my second goal and my third goal? How about I have tier goals, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and maybe a range goal between those tiers. And that way I know my steps on where do I want to first hit, and I'll celebrate that with us as a team. Yeah, it's not my first million, but it's getting me closer to it. And then my second tier, my third tier. And you do that with everything else that you have working with your team. Let's say customer service right now, we're getting 0 reviews, no reviews. And so, man, if I can start getting 1 or 2 reviews a week or a month, that's exciting. That's exciting. Let's celebrate that, and let's make that our goal. It's not going to be your ultimate goal, but it's an attainable goal. And then we can start growing that month after month, week after week. And so that's something we can focus on as a team, that those attainable goals, and do it with your conversion for your front desk. Do it with your conversion on consults to memberships, or consults into packages. And so you start somewhere. Yeah, it's not the ideal goal, but it's your tier goal. So maybe you have tier 1, like I said, tier 1 is the most basic goal. Tier 2 is where we're shooting for. Tier 3 becomes your stretch goal. And then you can play with those numbers and alter those numbers as you continue to get better and better. And so month after month, year after year, that tier 1 becomes much higher, pushing that tier 3 to be a much higher percentage and a much higher goal. In fact, it's doing those tiers that is one of those key elements that has help practices accomplish and meet their goals, is creating that roadmap and getting to those different tiers. So it's something we strongly suggest you doing as you're focusing on your goals. So that's the attainable side. And then it comes to relevant. And this is something that it can be very challenging if you're a small practice, and it also can be very challenging if you don't have very defined roles and goals for your team. So what happens is, as team members, we say, okay, this is my goal. We want to accomplish this, but every day you're going to be working on this, and it's not connected to the goal. And so, it's, in other words, the tasks that they are assigned to do on a daily basis, they're not relevant to their ultimate goal, or perhaps their goal is not relevant to their role. Their goal is not tied to their role. So we want to make sure that both the goal and the role are relevant to each other, are connected to each other. And so I invite you to take a look at your team members' responsibilities, and what are you hoping for them to accomplish. When it comes to sales, I like to do a side note when it comes to this, and that is, oftentimes when you have a salesperson and the salesperson has a lot of different tasks to do, the last thing they're going to do is the sales, because that's hard to do. And it takes follow up, and it takes planning, and it takes reaching out over and over. And if they're distracted by these other items, they'll do these items and be busy, but not efficient. And so as management, as owners, protect what's going to bring the revenue, protect the revenue generating activities is what I'm trying to say. Protect those that are going to bring in the revenue, and even sometimes protect them against themselves. They'll say, no, I can do this, and I can do this, and I'm really good at that. Great that you're good at all those, but those activities are taking away time and energy from you growing the practice, or you reaching out to new partnerships, or you having those consults and closing those consults into memberships or packages. And not just that, but following up with anybody you spoke with about the membership or package or the service, and making sure that you're diligent in making that close. And in fact, if I'm measuring you against that because it's relevant to your role, and now I'm measuring your conversion and really doing that on a daily, weekly basis, chances are I'm going to focus a lot on my conversion and hustle and make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to. And if we don't have certain things in place, if we're struggling with campaigns or with emails or text, and we need support, then they'll probably come up to you and say, hey, I need support here. And then as a team, we can kind of figure that out, which we've done for practices. But we're at least figuring out how do I accomplish my goal, because my activities are relevant. My role is relevant to my goal. And so as you're looking at your teams, take a look at that. Are they both connected? And then the last one is time bound, and that is having a deadline. Having a deadline on when you're gonna reach the goal. I have heard of practices having a yearly goal, and that's it. And then they all focus on the year, but it's so far out there that sometimes you don't think about the goal until you're either closer to it, until there's an emergency, until there's like a launch off or a kickoff or a renewal. And that's when maybe performance spikes, and then it goes back down to normal. Maybe I'm having my yearly review or a performance review. So right before that, my performance spikes, and then I get used to it, and then goes down again. So the goal is how often should I be reviewing my goals? How often, how should I break down these goals? And there's different ways to do that. I'll share with you what's been successful is at least have a monthly goal. If anything, have at least a monthly goal. Don't take it to the quarter. I mean, you may have a quarterly goal and a yearly goal, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's fantastic. You know where you're headed. Now, break that and now divide the quarter into the months, and make sure that you have that monthly goal. And then you divide the monthly goal into weeks, and then you have your weekly goal, and then the team can focus on a week. And then you even divide that into a daily goal, and then you're focusing on a daily goal. And I've seen practices that even divide that on an hourly goal or on a per ticket goal. And that way it's very specific. It's very top of mind. And the great thing about having it at least on a daily or a weekly basis is that you're able to look at what's working and what's not. And by identifying what's working and what's not, you're able to make those tweaks sooner and therefore see the outcome better. Plus, you also really are able to celebrate what's going great and keep momentum going. So the spikes are no longer every 3 or 6 months or a year. Now they're either daily, so then the spike is constant. That becomes the new baseline, or weekly. And so it just elevates your baseline to a higher level because you're reviewing it often. So that time bound is crucial. So just take a look at that as you're looking at the goals, is how often am I reviewing the goals? When is it expired? Do I have a monthly goal, a weekly goal, a daily goal, a per hour goal, a per ticket goal? Do they know what their goal is and when I'm going to review it with them? And the check-in can be them reporting it to you, whether it's on an email or a text, or you just following up with them or just asking them, how did it go yesterday? Did you meet your goal? But just do that. Do some type of checkpoints to make sure that they know the accountability is there. And so as you're doing that, as you're reviewing your SMART goals, something to keep in mind on a side note is your leading indicators and your lagging indicators. So the leading indicators is okay. What's to come? How many appointments? I stand every Friday and I look at next week's schedule and I say, how many appointments do I have? Okay, these many appointments. How many appointments do I need to hit my tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 goal? Okay, we're lacking on Wednesday, or we're lacking appointments Thursday. Then what am I going to do to make that happen? What phone calls can I make? What lists can I print out? Who could I be calling? And that could be something as simple as if I am doing hormones, for example, and people are due for their pellets. Okay, let's call those people and get them on the calendar. They haven't called us yet. We didn't rebook them, so let's get them on the calendar this coming week so we can get the week filled. If I have somebody who's doing toxin and it's been more than 4 months, 6 months, and they haven't come in, and we didn't have them on our calendar, or they missed their appointment, there was a no-show or a cancellation, let me get them back on. Maybe this week we can get them back on so we can take good care of them. Same thing with our hormones, so they can see great results. We're taking good care of them, but we're also being smart with our scheduling, smart with our goals. And then the lagging indicators, that is what's happened so far. So I can look at, okay, last week, how much did we perform? What was last meet? What did we bring in last week? Excuse me. What went well? What's some of the challenges that we faced? Okay, great. It's like you're standing on the scale and seeing and watching those numbers. And then watching those numbers, you can alter and do things with your leading indicators. So then you can do better or improve or tweak things. And I'm going to use the food as an analogy, right? I'm getting on the scale and I go, okay, great. My diet this week, I did this and this and this, and it did work out. I lost this amount of weight. So I'm going to duplicate that again next week. Or, shoot, I cheated too many times this week and I noticed that I did this and this. So I'm going to do it a little bit different this coming week. I'm going to drink more water. I'm going to exercise more often so I can then accomplish my goal next week. So use your leading and lagging indicators as a way to measure, which is what most of us do, but also as a way to strategize for the upcoming weeks or months so you can accomplish your goals. Remember, they need to be SMART goals, and look at the SMART goals not only as an office, break them down as roles, and make sure you have those SMART goals for each specific role and that they know what they are. And that way, as a team, if everybody's rowing on their specific position, we get to our target much faster. And so that's my invitation to us this week on this episode is just let's be smart with our goals. Let's be smart with our schedules, and let's make sure we're winning the war before we get into it because of our strategies. I'm looking forward to any comments if things how things went, and feel free to send us a message or email us, and we'll be glad to connect. Thanks.